Hi everyone, it's Lesley Oman with another Hungry Heffy Crafts video tutorial. Today I am smooching some ink and making this cute mermaid card featuring some Lawn Fawn stamps. And I'm also going to be creating a two-toned, almost like an ombre effect sentiment using my MISTI. I'm starting off today by cutting out a stitched rectangle using the Heffy Doodle Clover frames. And because I'm going to be using water and ink, I'm using some watercolor cardstock today. It's a bit thicker and it won't warp as much. It'll help me deal with the water a lot more. So I've cut out another scrap using my rectangle, and then I'm coming in again with the Lawn Fawn simple stitched hillside borders, and this will create a nice little seabed for the bottom of my ocean today. Now, to make sure I get the grounding just right, I'm using a pencil to draw a line onto this back section here, and that means that I can then stamp on a couple of little elements like seaweed and things that will pop up from my seabed when my card is assembled. Now, this is the part where I started stamping and then thought, actually, I think I should do this after I've done my ink smooshing, because the blue ink might actually change the color of my seaweed a little. So I'm going to move on to my ink smooshing. I'm using a plastic Ziploc bag, some clean water, and then 2 colors of blue distressings. Of course, I had to use Mermaid Lagoon, and I've also got Salty Ocean here, peacock feathers here as well. I'm tapping my ink onto the bag, spritzing it with water, and then using a paintbrush to move around the ink so that it doesn't have a very square, that the ink isn't lying in the shape of a square where the ink pad has rested and touched upon the bag. It kind of makes it a more organic look. When I then take my plastic bag, flip it over and set it on top of my project, because the bag is clear and really easily maneuvered, I can use my finger to smooth out the ink, and I can influence where the ink's going to go. I've turned that round as well, because whenever you actually do it, there's actually loads of ink on your bag, so you can probably get a couple of impressions from the one inking. But the key here to create lots of depth on your card is to do this in layers. Now, I discovered that it works best if you actually dry the layers in between adding more ink to it. So this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this a couple of times using my different inks. And then when I'm happy with the color, I'm going to take my ink pad and my paint, tap it onto my bag, mix it with water, and use my brush to splatter some blue splatters all over my card. I'm going to do the same with some Copic opaque white ink, but you can use white watercolor as well. As long as it's nice and thick and like pigmented, then it'll give this lovely impression of bubbles on your card. Now over to my little stamped images. I'm using my MISTI today, and I've stamped the mermaid from the Lawn Fawn Mermaid for You stamp set. I've stamped this onto, once again, oh no, it's not watercolor cardstock this time. I used some Copic friendly cardstock for this. And there's a couple of solid images in this set of coral. So I'm using my dye ink. These ones are from Simon Says Stamp to stamp these guys. And then for some more elements to go on my card, I'm using this older stamp set from Lawn Fawn called Life is Good. And it has a really cute sand dollar, a starfish, and then a shell as well. Now these are nice and teeny weeny, which means it doesn't take very long to colour them in. So I'm going to whiz through and add some colour with my Copic markers here. And with the inside of each of them, I'm pretty much leaving it blank. I'm just adding a little bit of colour to the edges. For my mermaid, I'm going to be a bit more pernickety about the colours. I want to bring in some teals, because that's my favourite colour, onto her tail. And then add some purples to her, what is that, a bikini top, I guess? I guess it could be shells. Now her hair I kind of struggled with. I wanted to bring in some pink, but then it was a bit too pink for me. So I brought in some reds as well, just to darken that up. And I'm using a flicking technique or a feathering technique to get the illusion of those strands of hair. Now each of these sets do have coordinating dies, so I'm going to use my washi tape to tape on the dies and then run that through my die cutting machine. Now back to stamping the seaweed and the kelp, and I discovered that this seaweed stamp actually, I can turn it upside down and get a different look. I'm using a couple of different tones of green ink for these just to get a little bit of variation. So once I've stamped this in, this is the willow color, I'll come in again with a slightly darker ink to the top. Just, it almost looks like it's further back now because it's darker, like it's in the shadows. I'll do a couple more on the side here, and then one that will just peek out a little tiny bit. And once again, that gives the illusion of different depths. Now for my sand bed or my seabed, I'm using a distress oxide, and similar to the ink smooching technique, but this time I'm bringing the card to my plastic bag. And with these distress oxides, and indeed this technique, you get a more even coverage, and with the oxides you get a kind of like a chalky finish, and I think that makes it look a little bit more like sand for some reason. I'll splatter it once again with my paintbrush and dry it in between. I'll do a couple of layers here just to get some more of that splattered look. When I'm happy, I can stick this right on top, and I'll use my ATG gun for that. Nice and simple. And add some glue dots to adhere my little pieces of coral to build my scene. And of course my sand dollar, starfish, and the little shell down here as well. And then I can move over to my sentiment. So for my sentiment, I'm using the word yay, which is from the Lawn Fawn Yay Kites stamp set. And I thought that I would bring in the two colors that I use for my coral. So this is the Simon Says stamp Duckling, yellow ink. And then I'm coming in again with this coral color, but only adding the ink to the bottom section of the word yay. But I don't want a harsh line on there. So to make the transition a bit more organic or muted, I'll take a paintbrush and dab it along the edges there. And then when I stamp it, it's not quite a harsh transition. To help it blend even more, I'll come in again with my Duckling yellow ink and stamp it one more time. Now the great thing about this sentiment, it does have coordinating dies, so it cuts it out perfectly. And then I'm using one of these little mini messages from Lawn Fawn. It says, "With love," and it'll go right underneath my sentiment yay, which I will adhere down with a glue pen and trim off the overhang. Now I managed to get a fingerprint or a smudge on my card, so of course I had to reach for my sequins to try and cover that up. I'm using a eyelash glue applicator to stick that on with my multi-matte medium. Then I took some stickles and covered her little fin to give her a nice sparkle. There we go, et voila, card finished. Thank you so much for watching this video. Here's some more videos that you may like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to make sure that you don't miss any of my other videos as soon as they're released. You can also leave me a like and a comment down here, and don't forget to follow me on social media @HungryHeffy. I'll see you there. Have a great day and happy crafting. Bye!